Tell me about two things you do. Number one, the vets always come out on the ice. When did that tradition start? And number two, the hand in the air when you're singing.
Well, that's a great question about when the vets, I think it was in '09, and that was, John McDonough and those, they wanted to kind of bring extra meaning to what was happening out there on the ice. And then the hand in the air, that really started in '09 also. So funny enough, there were three ladies, they were sisters. They sat right behind my seats in the lower bowl at the UC. And they were great gals. I mean, they had season tickets to the Joffrey, they had season tickets to the Opera, they had season tickets to the Blackhawks. I don't know what their jobs were, but they were, you don't run into that kind of fan so much, So we would have a lot of great conversations, had good rapport, but they could be cranky, and they were always looking at the ice crew girls out there saying, like, why don't you get out there and skate around in a little pair of shorts, stuff like that. It was like, oh, well, because nobody wants to see me.
Yeah, no one wants to see you in shorts. That's a bad visual. Yeah.
I don't think there's no secret to this answer. Anyway, so in the middle of that year, well, those playoffs that year in '09, I go out and I'd always done kind of this. Flag was still there, kind of like this. And I started that in 2006 because David Honore, who did the anthem before me, he actually was the one who said, hey, the Hawks need somebody to do this. He was the one who kind of invited me to come on down on behalf of the Hawks and audition for them. And in 1996, we did the anthems together. And so when we did them together, he was like, hey, can we do Who's Broad Stripes and Braha Height Stars? So he would do like that little thing like that, and then the flag was still there. So I kept doing this, And we got into that in '09, and for whatever reason, I mean, I just did it a little bit higher than usual and went back to my seats, and the ladies are like complaining because they said they couldn't see me doing the hand gesture. Why? Actually, I did it normally. I went back to the seats, and then the ladies are like, hey, why didn't you do the hand gesture today? We didn't see it. I said, what are you talking about? I did the hand gesture. You guys, you get your glasses checked, or you want me to clean those off for you, or whatever, just kind of give them a hard time. And so I said, I'll do it higher for you next time. So next time I went out, I did it a little bit higher. Went back. We still didn't see the hand gesture. Why didn't you do the hand gesture?
I love that they're heckling you.
Yeah, they're like,
this is great.
Well, they always start off with kind of a smack on the back of my head or shoulder or something too. It's like, yeah, we didn't hear it. Hey, you, So I said, look, I'm going to do it even higher for you guys, but I need you to stay awake this time, all right? And so I went out and I did it even higher, and the crowd went, ah! And as I was leaving the ice, it's like, wow, that's interesting. And then as I was walking away, they kind of did that last time a little bit too when I did it higher. And so next time it was just game on. It was
right. And you've done it ever since.
It went from this to just this, and now it's kind of turned into a thing, which is, I have a picture from the rally in 2015 from Soldier Field. It's just a sea of red while I'm singing the anthem, and everybody got their hand up in the air. And that's awesome. That's pretty cool that it's come that far.
Yeah, it
right.
really is. That whole anthem is so nuanced. You talk about how they wanted you to sing in certain syllables, and I think all Hawks fans probably realize that Star Spangled Banner Still Wave when they always hit it with that puff of air just to make it wave just this much.
Yeah.
They don't miss a detail down there.
Yeah.
That's the McDonough and Blunk effect at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They were really magic.
I think people talk about you're lucky to be there, and I am lucky, and I feel honored to be there, but I also really believe that, luck is that meeting of preparation and opportunity, same as it was for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And to have those things happen. And funny enough, it's true for McDonough, too. I mean, he's the first guy who would say, I'm not a hockey guy, But he stepped into that organization at a time when, it was going back on TV.
He knows how to market, and that's for sure.
But Kane and Taves were there. Everything like cleaned up and off to the races.
Right.
Yeah.
Dan, I want to go back to the 80s, 85 Bears. I mean, has there ever been a more colorful team, more personalities in the NFL? I don't think so.
No, certainly not up to that point. And I really can't think of any team beyond that has had that kind of an impact on a city that they had.
People probably don't remember, but Jim McMahon, when after he was drafted, came to Hallis Hall, had a beer in his hand at the podium, walked out of the car with a beer in his hand.
there was a lot of good stuff back in the early 80s when they drafted all those guys.
Yeah.
And it all came together, 84, 85, and should have lasted longer than it did. I don't really know the reasons why everything fell apart. I know
Right.
Mike and Buddy Ryan were not seeing eye to eye, and Buddy left to go to Philadelphia, and that was kind of the end of part of it. But, man, those 2 years, they were great in 84, and then the 85 season was ridiculous. I mean, they were shooting on their off days on Monday and Tuesdays commercials. Every guy had a commercial of some kind.
Nonstop.
We're driving around shooting them, shoot the commercials, you know. It was hectic as it could possibly be. And then in New Orleans, we're down there for a week with those guys. And, you know, McMahon is accused of slurring or slandering the women of New Orleans with something he said, and mooning a helicopter and all that stuff. And we're all trying to cover it. We couldn't get that close to practice. They wouldn't let us get that close at that point in time. But we saw enough of those guys running the streets.
Oh, yeah. Did they go out the night before the Super Bowl? I mean, just between us.
I didn't see them.
Okay.
They
So you
might
were
not have
out
been
that
where
night.
I was.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
no, I didn't see them that night. They were ready to play, quite obviously, by what they did to the Patriots. One of the biggest blowouts in Super Bowl history.
46-10?
Didn't they shoot the Super Bowl shuffle on the down low? I read that somewhere, like they had done that without Ditka
yeah.
knowing about it. Or
Before the
Didn't know
season was
about it.
over,
Yeah,
yeah.
they shot it, I think, with 3 or 4 games left to go.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, obviously one of the worst videos ever. But
Oh, man.
at the same time,
It's lasted forever.
Oh my gosh.
I love it so much.
I was in college at Seattle Pacific University still, and when that came across, you know, the TV, we loved it. Everybody loved it. It wasn't just Chicago. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean,
Yeah.
to have a team come out and do that was so, what do you want to call it? Revolutionary, unique, whatever.
Sure.
I'm not sure those guys were revolutionaries, but it was,
I would say
it was
not.
unique. Yeah, I would say not too.
and not that great of singers for the
No.
most part.
No.
But it was
Not at
so
all.
fun.
But you
It
got
was
guys,
so
I
fun.
mean, how many Hall of Famers were up there?
Yeah, a
I
lot.
mean, you got Peyton, you got Singletary,
Dent.
Hampton was in there,
Yeah.
Dent was in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was spectacular.
Right.
And, man, they got a lot of play. That was insane.
Nonstop playing it on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got so tired of hearing it after a while. It's like any song, you know. It goes to number one.
Oh, yeah.
You loved it the first 5,000 times you heard it.
1988, you covered Notre Dame. Last time they won a national championship.
I did.
Coach Holtz, were you doing play-by-play then?
This is the funny thing about GN. You know, we had all these sports properties that we were doing their games. At one point in time, in the early 2000s, I guess it was, we had the Cubs, the White Sox, the Bulls, the Blackhawks.
Yeah, you had
and we
everything.
did 2 or 3 Bears games on spillover Monday night, so we had everybody. But I'm walking down the hallway at GN, walking to my office, and Arnie Harris, the legendary director, comes bopping down the hall. Hey, kid, what are you doing Saturday? I said, well, I'm doing the news. I got, you know, I'm a regular day. He goes, you're going to South Bend with me. He goes, you're doing play-by-play on Notre Dame football. I said, I'm doing what now? He said, you're doing play-by-play. Paul Horning is going to be your analyst, and Mengelt, John Mengelt, who played football and basketball at Auburn, is going to be on the sidelines. I said, wait a minute now. I'm doing play-by-play of Notre Dame football. I've never done a football game in my life.
Really? That was your first one?
Oh, yeah. And it was against, I'm trying to think of who the first one was against. I think it was Purdue. And Purdue had a pretty good quarterback, and I had to call Coach Holtz. It happened so fast I couldn't get down there to talk to him the day before.
Well, could you understand him back in the day?
He and
Gosh
I,
dang it, Danny.
we did not. We didn't see eye to eye. He was not, you know, for all
Little
the,
cranky?
for all the upfront persona with him, he
Okay.
was not a great guy,
No.
in my opinion.
Look at you throwing people under the bus now
Well,
that you're retired.
You know, I'm asking him questions about the team, and I'm asking him a little bit about Purdue. What do you expect to see from them? And when we finished the conversation, he said, next time you want to talk about my team, feel free to give me a call. And he hung up.
Oh, wow.
But, and he's treated some other media people, or had treated some, in a pretty shabby way. So I wasn't the only one. And it wasn't that big of a deal anyway. I was so excited to do the game, and you know, they ripped it off. They won easily, and the game went pretty well. We wound up we did Purdue, we did Navy, we did SMU. we did Navy out in Baltimore, which was a real treat.
Oh, I'm sure.
And yeah, for me to do that, and then other things started to happen. In '89, Harry Carey gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, and same thing. I'm not doing anything but walking down the hall, and now I'm the lead sportscaster, so I got a little bit more juice. But Arnie says, "You're doing first and last 3 innings on TV, and radio in the middle 3, while Harry's going into the Hall of Fame."
Crazy.
And I'm a kid in Iowa. I show up with literally with hay growing out of my ears, and I listened to Harry and Jack Buck my whole young life doing St. Louis Cardinals games on the radio. Even so, we were Cub fans, but that was what we could get. We could barely get WGN where I lived, and for me to come in there and take Harry's chair,
it's a big deal,
and do a game, I mean, I was pinching myself. And I still remember a couple of the calls, and it all went pretty well. And by '98, when Chip was doing the games and was farmed out to Fox for the weekends, I did all the weekend games with Stoney. So I did Kerry Wood's first game, Sammy's 66th home run in Houston.
Oh, wow.
A whole bunch of stuff with the Cubs, and it was, if I look back on it, it's hard to imagine that I actually got a chance to do all that stuff.
It's just crazy.
Called some Bulls games. The year Gary Payton came into the league, they played the Bulls in an exhibition game, and Payton is just talking to Jordan the whole time. So Johnny Kerr and I are at courtside. We're in Seattle. It's the day before Thanksgiving, and they're playing the Sonics. And Michael, you can hear him say, "Hey, I got the rook." He stole the ball from Gary Payton 20 times if he stole it from him once, and dunked in his face 4 or 5 times. It was the most humiliating thing. And I had just seen a couple of months ago on Instagram where somebody had posted some of the highlights of that game.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually felt sorry for Peyton, and he was commenting on what had gone on, and he said, "I should have shut my mouth." That may be the only time he ever said that. But yeah, he got shown up pretty good.
What's what's your least favorite sport to do play-by-play?
Oh, least favorite?
Least favorite. And what is your favorite?
I haven't done any hockey. That would be my least favorite because I'm sure I couldn't keep up.
It's fast,
it's just
right?
way
It's
too
a fast
fast.
game. Yeah.
And, I think to do hockey, I think you almost have to have grown up in the sport and know these people as they come up from juniors to the NHL and kind of have a handle on who everybody is and what everybody does. I think if you try to come in there and do that cold, I don't know if you could do it or not. I mean,
Right.
I don't think I could do it. But I enjoyed baseball a lot. Did a lot of baseball, basketball. I did DePaul, did Illinois for a long time, and got to do X number of Bulls games and really enjoyed all that too. So it's all been fun. Every bit of it's been great.
That's right. DePaul basketball also on WGN.
Yeah.
The Ray Meyer, Joey Meyer era. Yeah.
Yeah, we were fortunate to have some really good teams back in those days. I think the first thing I did for DePaul, in fact, I know it was the year after Ray had retired, and Swirsky, Chuck, was doing DePaul on radio. And back then, radio and TV were in the same building up on Bradley Place. And somebody called me from upstairs and said, "Swirsky has laryngitis. He can't do the game. Can you get out to the Rosemont Horizon," which it was back then, and,
Right. Oh, yeah.
and do the game on radio? And your analyst is Coach Ray. I go, "You got to be
The
kidding
legend."
Because I've gotten to know him fairly well over the years, and we were at his last game, which was a disaster in the NCAA tournament. They had the lead, blew it, lost in overtime. And that was the end of his coaching career, but he stayed with it and did the broadcast. They were playing Northern Illinois, and Northern had a pretty good team, and coaches cheerleading like nobody's business. It was kind of a hysterical moment, but it was a lot of fun. And then I got a chance to do the TV. They were looking for somebody at GN, and I walked past the general manager's office, and I saw them in there, and I knew what they were talking about. And I just stuck my head in the door and said, "Hey, I'm standing right here." I said, "I've done a lot of basketball.
Here I am.
I'd be happy to do that for you." And they said, well, we didn't really think of that, but why don't we? And we had a nice long run, and they had some good years and some down years, but a lot of great games. There was a game in the horizon between Memphis State and DePaul with Tom Kleinschmidt and Penny Hardaway. Each had about 50 points in the game. And it went to overtime, a couple of overtimes, and just a lot of spectacular games and moments from all that stuff.
Was that when TK had the hair down to his shoulders, or he had the high and tight?
He was college cut back then.
Okay.
I think he went overseas, and when he came back, we used to play some ball with him down at East Bank Club.
Oh, yeah.
And he came back and walked in the gym. I didn't really recognize him.
He would talk trash back in the day.
There were a lot of trash talkers in that gym, too. When Jordan had retired and when was mulling the comeback, he would show up down there every now and then. So we're playing basketball with Michael Jordan. And Howard Sudbury and I are on a team, and Michael's on our team. And Michael's got the ball out front, and some guy goes and sets a pick on somebody so Jordan can go around. And afterward, Howard said, you think Michael needed that stockbroker to set a pick so he could get open? I mean, he wouldn't even shoot in the games. He would just run around for conditioning.
Of course.
He passed everybody. He was great.
I was going to ask if he ever passed the ball to you.
He passed it a lot,
yeah.
There was a day down on the lakefront in Grant Park. I don't know why I was asked to do this, but I was asked to play in a 3-on-3 game, and there were 5,000 people down there. And it was me, Otis Wilson, and Michael Jordan against Patrick Ewing, James Worthy, and Dominique Wilkins.
Oh, wow.
What?
I'm guarding Ewing.
Who would you match up?
I had Ewing.
You had Ewing.
I mean,
Hall
not
of
only is
Famer?
he 7'1", he's he's got me by
Shoulders,
about 60 pounds, and I took him outside and made a couple of three-pointers over.
Okay. Held him to 32 that day, right?
Well, you know what happened? Then I thought, these people didn't come down here to watch me shoot three-pointers.
No.
That was the last time I shot the ball in that game. But just to be out there with all those people, all Hall of Famers,
Wow.
spectacular.
Jim, we talked about singing in front of the Blackhawk fans. You've done the Indianapolis 500 for the last 8 years?
Yeah, it's been 8 years. Took over for Jim Neighbors, which...
Legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Legend. But, you can talk to a lot of people under about 30, and they have no idea. Maybe 35, no idea who he is. Gomer Pyle.
Maybe 40.
Yeah. That's have you been to the 500?
I've never been to the
Yeah.
Indianapolis
Absolutely.
500.
There's nothing like it, is there?
It's really, there's quite a conglomeration of people.
Oh,
yeah.
my
You
God.
get them from every different part of society.
Yeah.
It's
They sold
a
300.
spectacle, as they say. The
It is,
greatest one
yeah.
in racing.
They sold 375,000 tickets last year.
Oh, my
I
God.
mean, you just don't get that many people in one place at one time for really anything. Even like
Right.
Super Bowl, you're going to get, 100,000 in a stadium, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't get the same coverage as a Super Bowl,
So-
but the actual day of that race is just an unbelievable thing to be part of.
People do know who Jim Neighbors is. Of course, he was Gomer Pyle in the sitcoms for all those years, and talked with that hillbilly accent.
That's
and then
right.
you hear him sing.
That's right.
He's like, he's a
Beautiful voice.
classically trained
Yeah.
opera
Yeah.
singer.
Yeah.
I mean, he sounded terrific.
Yeah, I love
we
his
used to
voice,
watch him
yeah.
all the time when he did that.
Yeah.
What was it like, jump in for him, because he was legendary down there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, my philosophy about like getting up in front of an audience and performing for them is that you have to reach them where they're at. You have to reach them kind of where they, with what they expect and what they love. And then you can take them somewhere new, but you've got to do that. And so, they tried some guy who had won The Voice, the TV show The Voice, and he was from Indiana. They had Straight No Chaser, which is a men's vocal group from Indiana, right?
Okay.
They tried it, and they're like, no. And I knew that this could be potentially, I don't know if life-changing, but life-enhancing in a big way to be part of this. So I gave a lot of thought to that, and spent time looking at video and just watching people and seeing how they're responding, whether it was like singing along or crying or just rocking back and forth and then cheering at the end, and how are they relating to this guy. And so I knew I was going to do it pretty straight, kind of like Jim does it, but then I'm not a Jim Neighbors impersonator. I'm not a Sinatra impersonator
Right,
or
yeah, you're doing your
Beatles
own
cover
thing.
band, right?
Sure.
I'm me. So we went to the Purdue band. Doug Bowles, the president at the track, was like, you can do anything you want with it. So I had that leeway. I went to the guys at the Purdue band. I thought, let's include them. Being an IU guy myself, You know, that's an offering. That's of détente, isn't it? You know, hey, we'll go ahead and
That
do
must
it
have
with you
been
guys.
difficult for you.
Yes, it was. It was. I figured one day a year I could be big enough man to set that aside. Anyway, and then after a winning in that football game like here the other day where IU beat them 66-0, that still feels pretty good though. I feel like I've earned the right to totally enjoy that. Anyway. Yeah, so I had the band kind of beefed up a little bit, and we changed kind of the end of the thing so that I could, end it, the way I end it, and it's been great. It's like we want you back, we want you back, we want you back. And so it's
Remind me, does the
fun.
left hand go anywhere?
No left hand goes anywhere.
The Indiana song, it's not going anywhere.
No,
Okay.
It was great though. I'll tell you what was so different is stepping into the tradition at the Blackhawks. You have all the cheering was going on before I ever arrived, and it was an incredible platform to be part of that. And my manager at Columbia Artists used to say, I can get you an audition with anybody, but you have to earn the job, right? And just like you could be put into any kind of platform, but then you have to do something with the platform. So just like what has kind of evolved out of the Blackhawks, I recognized that the Indianapolis 500 was another one of those platforms. And I gave a lot of thought to how I wanted to do that, because you want to engage that massive audience, and you want them to buy into you. So it's been fantastic to be part of it and just see it evolve like it has.
I feel like the Chicago Bears, when they're in the playoffs, they bring in the ringer to sing the national anthem. How many times have you done it for the playoffs?
Now.
Wait,
okay.
hold on,
We
let's
did.
think.
We
When
did
was the last time- when
Seattle.
was
We
the
did
last
Green
time the
Bay.
Bears were in the
We did
playoffs?
the Eagles.
Yeah.
You'd have to think back a little bit,
I know.
wouldn't you?
And
Unfortunately.
I've wanted to, Pete.
This is a Bears town. You're in front of 68,000 strong. You got the fighter jets are going to fly
Yeah, that's
over.
awesome.
You got to be pumped up for that.
Oh yeah.
I'm getting chills just talking about it.
Yeah, in 2010 when we won the Cup, right? The Blackhawks were fantastic about bringing that cup around to different sport teams, right? And so opening day, 2010, the team's there, the cup's there, I'm doing the anthem, and everybody went nuts. And they just cheered. It was so loud. It was awesome. You didn't know that was going to happen necessarily. Nobody orchestrates that. It just kind of happens organically, right? Everybody's excited. They recognize the Blackhawks and me from that.
Yeah.
So my understanding is then that Peanut Tillman was the head of the Players Association, and the players were kind of like, that was cool. We want more of that. And so Peanut Tillman went to the Bears and said, yeah, we want more of that,
Right.
So I've been twice a year, some years, most years opening day, and then I've done all those playoff games, which we'd like to have home playoff games.
Yes.
We'd like to have more
Yeah.
of those.
See you next year.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because people will talk about the anthem and it's like, oh yeah, you're going to scare the other team or you're going to like intimidate the other team. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's how it works. And if so, Aaron Rodgers, somebody asked him about me singing at the event. He said, oh yeah, that guy's going to sing again? Oh, I love it when he sings. We win every time.
Oh, jeez.
It's like, oh my God.
And they win every time when you don't sing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. You can't take credit for things like that.
Speaking
for
of the
sure.
playoffs, 2005, 2016, let's talk about the White Sox in 2005. Ozzie, talk about a colorful manager on that team. He must have been fun to at least have around, talk to. Did you like Ozzie?
Like him. We loved him.
Of course you loved him.
We loved him.
He always had something to say, didn't he?
And it was usually 100% politically incorrect, right? I'm telling you, that year, there are a couple of stories, and I just can't repeat them for language issues only, but they had Shingo Takatsu as their closer, Mr. Zero from Japan, remember?
Yep.
He spoke no English. Steve and I are standing there at practice down in Tucson.
Steve the cameraman.
Yes.
Yep.
And we see Ozzie and Shingo having a conversation, and I know for a fact that neither one of them knows what the other one's saying. He's speaking Japanese and he's speaking Spanish. Because it didn't matter, because they couldn't understand each other either way.
There's a lot of hand gesturing going on.
Yeah, and so we're standing there, and Ozzie finishes up, and he walks over to us, and he goes, I can't say it. But it had to do with his ethnicity, which, Ozzy, it was never
It was
mean-spirited.
very colorful.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what you meant. Very colorful.
It was very colorful. And then
Right.
we would always go to the managers' homes in spring training to do the Cubs on a Sunday night and then the Sox on the next Sunday night, or vice versa. So we went to Ozzy's house, and Ozzy and Joey Cora were sitting on the couch in ripped up T-shirts, drinking grape vodka, watching Baseball Tonight on ESPN. This is a couple hours before he's supposed to go on live with us. So, we had a drink with him, and it got to be 9 o'clock, and we're going on at 9:40, and then it got to be 9:20, and we said, hey, are you going to change that T-shirt? Because it was mangy looking, and he went back in his room and got one that might have been 10% cleaner than the one he had on originally. But he came out, and we did the interview, and it was great. And Steve, my camera guy, said to him, look, my buddy is turning 40, and I'm asking some guys to say a little bit of a happy birthday greeting to him. I've gotten some of the Cubs and some of your players. And he goes, I wondered if you'd do it. And he said, is this going to be on YouTube or something? And we go, no, it's just going to be shown at this bar for this guy's surprise birthday party. So I'm sitting next to Jim, and Ozzy's right here. And he did about 2.5 minutes of the bluest
Oh boy.
happy birthday wish to this guy you could ever imagine. And I'm doing everything not to fall off the chair. And then at the very end, he just looks up at the camera and goes, happy birthday, bro. Just like that. And I don't know if I'm sure that video has never seen the light of day except in our little group.
Right.
Because we're kind of keeping the promise. But man, it was hysterical. And then, he got himself in trouble so many times.
Of course.
He had some legendarily famous stuff about Jay Mariotti that got him suspended, I think, for a game or two.
But we loved it.
Loved it.
Yeah.
And he was, I think he got a little bit into himself toward the end of his managerial term here, but he was a good manager. He knew how to work the pitchers, which a lot of Sox managers have had a hard time doing for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he wanted to do it the last time it came open again, but I think a lot of people were interested in seeing if he'd get a chance to do it again.
We always go back to what we know, don't we?
Yeah.
Everybody wants
I
that.
think Ozzy was like, he just felt real, right?
He did.
And he was funny.
Yeah. The 2016 Cubs. Talk about another colorful manager, Joe Madden. He had the players dressing up. I mean, the difference between 2005, where everyone was happy for the Sox, 2016, people were crying. They were so happy that the Cubs finally made it to the World Series.
Well, it was the Red Sox reincarnated pretty much, right? Boston finally broke through back in the late 2000s, and then I'm not sure anybody saw it coming. I mean, the Cubs won a playoff series the year before. They beat the Cardinals. They got to the NLCS and got wiped out by the Mets, and you hoped that they could do better, and right along they did. And you mentioned Joe Madden. He brought the zoo to the clubhouse. There were a bunch of exotic animals in there. All those dress-up pajama flights on road trips, all that kind of stuff, I think did serve to take the pressure off in a way. But I think by the end of Joe's tenure, I think it had started to wear a little bit thin. But he was obviously fantastic for us. He never met a microphone he didn't like.
Oh, yeah.
And he always had good stuff to say. We always enjoyed hanging out with him. And, they've had some over the years, not just Joe, but Lou Piniella, for one.
Oh, yeah.
Piniella had some hilarious stories for when he managed the Yankees for Steinbrenner. He said one time he was a scout, I think, or working in the front office, and they were looking at somebody that was playing for the Astros, and Steinbrenner called him in and said, Lou, I want you to go down to the Astrodome. He goes, I don't want anybody to recognize you. He goes, I've been a player and a manager my whole life. He goes, they're not going to know, or not going to not know who I am. And he said, well, wear a hat and a raincoat. And he said, well, George, the Astros play inside in the Astrodome. He said, if I wear a raincoat, everybody's going to be looking at me like I'm an idiot. But we did him on one of those Sunday night shows, and he came out with a huge mustard stain on his white shirt. And he asked Steve, our camera guy, if I don't want to change shirts. He said, "Could I just put my hand over it like this and do the interview?" He said, "Yeah, Lou, you're going to stand there and do this 3-minute interview with your hand over
there,
your chest
right
like
there. That looks a little strange, doesn't
Okay,
it?
I'll go in and change it." He did have a lot of good stuff and a real character.
We've had some really fun, charismatic characters as coaches in Chicago history.
Oh, well,
I
Ditka.
mean,
Stop right
Ditka,
there.
yeah. Ditka, a little angry at times, right?
Oh, yeah, he could get a little angry.
Always a great soundbite, though, from the coach.
So this is 1990, and it's the final exhibition game. They're playing Buffalo in Columbia, South Carolina. So it's they played 4 exhibition games then, and they never play any of their starters or any of their frontline guys. It's always backups and guys trying to make the roster. So it's the morning of the game. It's a night game. I think it was in like a Thursday or something, and we go out to play golf. Me and him and Brad Palmer and some other Bears personnel. We had a couple of groups, and we drove a ways away from Columbia to go to this really nice golf course, and we played. And I've got him down a substantial amount of money as we're heading toward the end. And it took a while to get there, and we're playing kind of slow, which is not good for him because he plays golf like polo, out of a cart. He's out, he hits it, he's back in the cart.
Really?
He played 18 holes in an hour and 15 minutes. But he was, with us then, so he couldn't quite do that. And he was getting a little frustrated, and we got toward the end, and we finished 18, and now I'm getting ready to put my stuff away, and he says, "We're playing 9 more holes." And I look it's like 3:30, and the game's at 7, and we're ways away from Columbia. I said, "Coach, you got a game at 7." He goes, "I don't give a we're playing 9 more holes," because he wanted to get his money back.
Of
and
course.
he did. He got a little bit of it back. And I guess he made the sideline in time. I don't think he was there for any of like the pregame meals or meetings or anything. But
Ditka
I
just
think he
shows
made
up.
the
There's no
sideline for the
talk.
kickoff.
Yeah, there's no pep talk before the game.
What a guy.
And before we go, speaking of golf, you golfed with Tiger Woods. Is that true?
I've had the opportunity to play with a lot of guys. I mentioned that Kleinschmidt Penny Hardaway game.
Yeah.
That night we flew to Orlando to go to Disney World the next day to do Phil Jackson's coach's show. We did a show called No Bull. Phil and I did it, and we'd have a guest. We had Pat Williams from the Magic on down there, and then the Bulls were playing on Tuesday against Orlando, and we had a day off, and Hawk Harrelson lives on the 16th tee up there. And Hawk and I had talked, and he said, "We're going to play in Arnold Palmer's Skins game." So we went out and played in the morning at Bay Hill, which is Arnold's course. And we got done about 11:30 and grabbed a little lunch, and at 12 the Skins game starts, and I'm playing golf with Arnold Palmer. And he's like my all-time idol. And we've got Arnold, and I think Scott Hoke was playing, a guy who almost won the Masters, and the guy who won the World Series of Poker, and Hawk, and all this stuff. And afterward, we're having some Rolling Rocks from Pennsylvania in the clubhouse, and these guys are playing hearts, and I'm just pinching myself.
Wow.
I mean, that's probably my greatest golf experience. But Tiger was playing in the Western Open, and they had a celebrity thing on Tuesday before the Thursday opening round. And it's a bunch of guys. I mean, Lee Trevino, Tom Watson. I had Billy Andrade for a partner. But Tiger and Tom Watson were partners. And they're cleaning our clocks pretty much. And we get to the 18th hole, and they had some kind of a contrived chip-off thing. And it was me and Tiger chipping off for $7,000 for charity money. And I think Tiger was still an amateur then. That's how long ago it was. And, I played Cog Hill 10 million times.
Right, yeah.
And the pins, we're chipping from front right to back left. It's a big breaker from right to left. You got to go over a couple of ridges. I've hit that shot plenty of times. So I chipped it up there and chipped it up to about 4 feet and felt pretty good about it. And Tiger chipped it up this close to the hole.
Final question. When people ask you about your career, there has to be something that comes right away. Jim, we'll start with you. Does anything pop out right away from your career? 2010 Stanley Cup, 2013, 2015, Indy.
Being on the ice after the win in 2015, you know, because in 10 and 13, they were away.
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And 15, you know, I was there with my girlfriend at the time, and you know, they won, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I was up on the 4th floor in like a theater box, you know, and it's like, well, let's go downstairs and see what's going on in the press room. So we're sitting down in the press room, and then at some point they turn the TVs on, and I see everybody's out on the ice, and I'm like, oh my God, let's go, you know. So we got out there on the ice, and man, that was, you know, talk about like a pinch yourself moment.
Oh, what a moment!
Just running around out there on the ice, and
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, and I got a picture of my girlfriend with Corey Crawford, who she thought was just awesome, you know. And so she's, in one of them, she's got a big smile, and in the other one, she's just staring at him like, oh my God. And I'm like, I better get her away from here. So we
Right.
That was big for me. My son had started working for the Blackhawks in 2008, I believe, as an intern, and by the time 2015 rolled around, he was an executive in the ticket department. So.
Oh, wow.
I actually, as we were doing all the interviews on the ice after the game, after they'd won, I actually got a chance to grab him around the neck and interview him for a second on WGN, and that was quite a moment.
How
but,
awesome is that moment?
It
You
was
and your
great.
son on the ice after the Blackhawks win the Stanley Cup?
but I will say, and that was, as moments go, that was huge. But for me, growing up as a sports fan and played every sport in high school and played a couple in college, and just to meet, not only get to work alongside these people, but just to meet some of them, like Harry Carey and Steve Stone and Jack Buck, I got to meet 100 times, and his son Joe as well, and you know, Arnie Harris, the great producers, and
legend. Yeah.
Johnny Kerr and Wayne Larrabee, and you know, everybody that did the games. I mean, Neil Funk, all those people. But I mean, there were some just flat out legends that I got the chance to work with and alongside. And you know, when I go back and think about all that stuff, I think as a whole, that's what stands out for me. Just
Right.
all the people I've gotten to work with, and all the people I've met along the way, and how nice everybody has been to me. And you know, I don't deserve it. I don't know if anybody deserves what I've been able to do, but it's been a lot of fun.
Well, you two are two of the best, seriously. Legends in Chicago. Dan, I love you. I mean, you know, 38 years on Chicago television, 45 years in the business. And Jim, you're still going with your career, man. Congratulations.
Still going. I would ditto what Dan says, though. It's like, it's not like I've become best friends with like all these people that you meet, but just like being in this position where you're out there actively involved with everybody, you know.
Right.
I mean, I've gotten to know, I've had drinks with David Letterman, you know, and like I have his assistant's cell phone number, and you know, I got Joe Buck's cell phone number, I got Mike Tirico's cell phone number, I got, you know, it's just like the different people. I was on Harry Carey and Stephen Colbert, and just like all these different things that have happened, and it's just amazing to be part of that, and just to be so in the mix of what this exciting, dynamic kind of world and life is.
Mm-hmm. Guys, thanks for sharing today.
You got it.
Really good
Enjoyed
to see
it.
you. Thanks, buddy.